I'm Jatavia Gary. I'm a filmmaker and multidisciplinary artist. Originally, I'm from Dallas, Texas, but I spent the last 17 years in Brooklyn, New York. My creative practice consists of documentary and experimental film, as well as installations. Through my work, I'm interested in demystifying power structures, examining notions of intimacy and embodiment, and the interiority of Blackness, specifically Black womanhood. I find history and its grip on the past and the present, as well as its influence on the future, extremely fascinating. My creative capital project is an experimental feature-length documentary film entitled The Evidence of Things Not Seen. The work is deeply personal and autobiographical. That's my great-grandmama. Her name is Lila Mae Amerson. I call her name. The film delves into the reverberating effects of transgenerational trauma, the idea that the historical trauma experienced by our ancestors alters the genetic material passed down in our DNA. Structurally, the backbone of The Evidence of Things Not Seen is a series of formal interviews with my most foundational relationships, starting with my mother and father. I was interested in learning the details of their respective childhoods and personal lives in hopes of knowing them and myself at a much more deeper level. The film then branches out to interviews with my brother and sister, my 80-year-old grandparents, extended family members, close friends, former lovers and boyfriends, and even therapy sessions. In many ways, the film is a composite self-portrait, but also a bold exercise in self-actualization. Who are we in relation to our most intimate relationships? Here's a short sample scene from the film.
I do believe that they loved each other. It's just that they didn't know how to communicate effectively. They wanted to be together, but at the same time, they wanted to do their own thing. And it didn't work. And my parents was hardworking parents, but they were young and they made young decisions. For example, my father would get paid sometime and he wouldn't come straight home. It's funny now that I look back on it, but it wasn't funny back then when I was a kid. And then when he didn't know how to come home, my mom knew how to go find him. They would fight, they would drink and party like most young people in their mid-20s. A lot of times under the influence, they didn't make good decisions, so it kept strife in the home.
How was that for you?
I was terrified. I would wake up on Fridays with a migraine headache. And my older brother would come and get me and keep me for the weekend until Sunday.
Over the course of several interviews, I learned intimate details about my family members. Numerous repeated patterns emerge, the psychic ancestral inheritance passed down from one generation to the next. Folks struggling with alcoholism, domestic violence, grief from the unexpected and early loss of a parent, divorce, and instances of mental illness. But I also learn of unspeakable love, a deep and abiding faith, redemption, and resilience. My question is, if transgenerational trauma so stubbornly endures, might a transgenerational wisdom also be accessible? Does history define us, or are we doomed to repeat the mistakes of our past? Can we release ourselves from the looping cycles of behavior by examining entrenched patterns?
Lord has showed me the way. I ain't gonna grieve no more. No matter how you all of them treat me and my children, the Lord has showed me the way. And someday, we ain't gonna never be slaves no more. And old Master Jim took that.
A few of the key constituting elements driving the evidence of things not seen, formally and structurally, are the creative use of archival material and experimental direct animation, an avant-garde filmmaking technique from the mid-20th century in which I manipulate directly onto the surface of 16mm film, scratching and etching into the emulsion of the film, painting and drawing on the surface of the celluloid. This tactile, labor-intensive process imbues the film with energy and life force, a haptic intimacy, a conversation across time. Multiple and disparate visual elements weave together to create a collage of memory, nostalgia, and identity. The layers are as inextricably bound as genetic material. Now, we've been blessed to receive a generous amount of support, over $150,000 from several organizations. Many of you people are in the room, so big up yourselves for catching the vision. We appreciate it. But we still have a funding gap of $400,000 to complete production, post-production, and we have an expansive distribution campaign that we're hoping to mount. So partners with streaming, theatrical, festivals, and public television are needed. We're also really interested in mounting community screenings with talkbacks all over the country. So we need organizational partners for that as well as mental health practitioners, counselors, folks who are interested and helpful around creating dialogue and connecting people to resources, because we're really interested in healing, right? So thank you all very much for being here, for your time and presence. It's been a blessing to meet all of you, and thank you, Creative Capital.